Mm.
Don't look at me. It's never had an issue for me yet.
Yes, I know. Google Hangouts loves you. Ooh, Vampire Hunter D. I've heard of that.
Well, it's the remastered Blu-rays.
Oh, I know what I've been watching.
Oh dear. Oh, that's right.
Huh.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was the actual legitimate title of a Gundam series.
Me neither.
All right. Nothing from you. Nothing from you this time, Corey.
I think
Corey.
I'll hold off until the next time.
All right. Okay, so we've started the broadcast. Just have to get into the mood. All right.
Do you have a video link?
Video link? What do you mean?
Link to the YouTube video.
Oh. I don't, but I can go get it real quick.
Do I have to be doing any Audacity stuff right now?
No.
We're probably not going to do that.
It worked fine last time, so no. Okay, what was it? What was I gonna say? Hello, channel. There we are. Live now. Wait, no, don't do that. There we go.
Do I have to be doing any Audacity stuff right now?
No. We're probably not going to do that.
Okay, go away. Stop
You
that.
guys sound echoey.
That would be echoey from about 50 seconds ago.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's also because Alex here is probably not wearing headphones,
Ah.
which continues to bug me.
I've tried to get him to wear headphones for years. It never worked.
Which is why his audio quality is always the worst.
I didn't do it.
All right, still hearing echoes?
Nope.
All right.
No, but I'm hearing some other kind of weird background sound. Get some freaking headphones, man.
I'm wearing headphones.
Okay, good. Good. Thank God.
So the background sound is something else.
I don't know, it's coming from you. I don't know what it is. Are you fiddling with your microphone?
Am I signaling with my microphone?
Are you
Fiddling.
moving your laptop?
I wasn't.
Well, the earthquake must only be on your end of the house then.
Now it's gone.
You sure?
Yep, now it's gone.
Okay,
Mostly, I guess.
Okay, let me try. Nope. I'm just gonna leave it. Because if I start messing with it, it's just gonna break again. All right.
Remind me someday to schedule a vacation to Florida so I can learn you how to audio some visual.
What?
I mean, I don't know what else to do here.
Are you typing something?
I'm not typing anything, no.
I just was.
Okay, that's what that was, but I don't freaking know.
I mean, I have a blue microphone. It's just sitting right next to me. I got.
And we don't need to go through the whole setup because I'm not going to be able to troubleshoot that way.
All right, I'm just saying I don't know how to do any better than this right now.
Okay, whatever.
All right. Let's get started.
Give me energy, man. Energy.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to get going again. Trying to start Google Hangouts repeatedly and failing tends to drain that from me.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me count. Hey everybody! Now welcome to the second episode of our. Okay, let's start again.
Oh, God.
Podcast the animated series. Such an awkward thing to say. I'm used to saying something then the podcast or whatever.
Just get
Hey,
right into it.
GX.
Just get right into it. Hey, podcast the animated series.
I'm getting into it right now. Just let me get going. So, pause. Hey everybody, and welcome to Podcast the Animated Series, Episode 2, Mactal Shopping Arcade at Benobashi. Can't believe I finally said that correctly. Now, with me today is Corey Holmes, GX Echidna, the Evil Dr. Reef, and Saber McSaberton. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Yo.
I'm so cool.
Hey, you're not that cool.
Well,
Intros
shut up.
always work best when you reflect on how you screwed up previously.
I have been mispronouncing that name incorrectly for the last month, so I'm very happy I finally managed to pronounce it correctly.
I can tell because you said it on the show.
Yes. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna start over.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sorry, GX.
I'm going
Alright.
to cry in the corner now.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to the second episode of Podcast the Animated Series. I'm your host, Alex Spiel, and with me today is GX Echidna, Corey Holmes, the Evil Dr. Reef, and Saber McSaberton. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey,
Howdy.
sounds.
So over the last weekend, I've been watching some Halloween movies, including Hotel Transylvania, both the first one and the second one. And let me tell you, I had specifically avoided Hotel Transylvania when it first came out in 2012, despite the fact that it was directed by animation director, awesome guy, Genndy Tartakovsky. And I definitely do regret that now, because while it's certainly not a Pixar quality movie, it's certainly a very good animated movie. Like the premise sounds stupid. The trailers made it sound so stupid. Dracula starts a hotel for monsters, and it gets invaded by this goofy human named Johnny, who's this 90s kid hippie backpacking across Europe, and
I already hate the sound of it.
Well, I mean, it's not. I don't think Tartakovsky actually started on the project.
He did not start the project. What he did was he took over the project in February of 2011, completely rewrote it, completely changed the whole feeling of the movie.
Yeah.
He aimed to make it much more energetic, kind of like Chuck Avery's type of animation. That really shows, because there are few animated. I cannot think of another animated CGI movie that moves with the speed, the sheer speed of this.
Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs.
I haven't actually seen that one.
Well, then shut up, quit. We're done with the podcast. You need to go watch that movie.
I will.
I like both of them. I am a Genndy fanboy, but that movie ain't got nothing on Cloudy.
All right, but the basic premise is Dracula. It's more than the premise that I described. It's really more of it's a family picture.
It's a movie about
Dracula and his daughter, and essentially him kind of falling in love with his daughter's future husband.
Well, it's a coming of age.
I was not expecting Dracula to be the one who becomes such great friends with this kid, because that's not how these kinds of stories tend to go. Usually it's the father is all against. He's all against this boy who's coming in there and wooing his daughter. He's going to teach him a lesson.
I mean, that's the whole point. That's how it kind of starts. Like this movie is about. It's not that revolutionary.
It's not.
Movie.
It's not. But it's so
about,
surprising.
hey, I'm against my daughter marrying this guy, even though this guy somehow found his way in, and then just coming to, I guess, accept. Because I mean, it's.
Well, the reason why I'm talking more about Dracula's relationship with him than the daughter Mavis's relationship with him is because really it is mostly Dracula's movie. Most of the moments with Johnny involve Johnny and Dracula and the two of them bonding.
Yeah.
Sounds like he really should have just bit him and killed him.
he doesn't do that.
They
anymore.
actually address that.
He doesn't want to say, like all the monsters. They don't kill. They don't. You know, they don't.
They don't
terrify.
want. It basically is a movie about
being rated G.
There are these stereotypes that exist about us, but you know we really don't follow those. We are just normal people who happen to be monsters.
Yeah.
And Dracula, in turn, that actually also describes the monster's view of us, of course. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said about us.
Are you trying to suggest that humans were the real monsters all along?
No, obviously, but no.
In spite of his belabored description of it, it is a pretty good movie. Like it's not anything super amazing, but I would say if you like the way that Genndy Tartakovsky animates, the thing I got out of it most was just you can tell by the way the characters move that he really animated it. It really has that kind of angular, very directed, very quick movement style to it. And I think it's a good visual treat. I think the plot has its moments. I think as a plot itself, it's nothing special. It has funny moments, but it's a fun watch if you want something Halloween related.
Well,
I mean, I have
will...
to say the only reason that I'm kind of like not ripping you guys apart over this is because Genndy Tartakovsky's involved. So surely there's probably some merit to it, but
well, I mean,
he's
even
totally doing a terrible job of selling this.
I mean, even the frickin' Minions movie, which I saw, still has merit to it. It's just, it's at least on par with, let's say, maybe some of the earlier DreamWorks before they got sequel crazy, we'll say.
Yeah, okay.
I will say this, though, even if you don't... I mean, besides the fact that Gendy's on it, it has a very good all-star cast. I don't know if you've looked at the voice acting list. Besides Adam Sandler, I'm saying, besides him.
And to be fair, you don't even know it's him because he's putting on the crazy Romanian accent the whole time.
Right. But if you look, let me just see if I can pull this up.
Honestly, though, Saber, like a lot of movies have that anymore. I don't think that's really a selling point for animated features anymore. Just because
it shouldn't be, except that these are really good comedians.
That also doesn't mean much anymore. Remember, Pixels exists.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I
Well, it
forgot
didn't
about
exist
that
at the
movie.
time. Yeah, we all forgot about that movie.
So
That's probably for the best. I'm sorry for bringing it up,
Thank you.
but
Thank
I
you.
had to make the point.
So, Dr. Reeve, what have you been watching?
Well, actually, I think that Saber should go next since she also watched a movie about vampires.
All right, go on, Saber.
Tell us about Twilight, the animated series.
Oh, hell
Oh, how cute!
Hell no. But anyways, no, what I've actually been watching are the remastered editions of Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, which are animations based on a group of novels called Vampire Hunter D that's been running for almost 10 years in Japan. Now the films, there's two films. There's just the regular Vampire Hunter D, which was made in the early 90s, if I recall. and then there's Bloodlust. And of the two, Bloodlust is the obvious superior, both in animation and in voice acting. Although it's interesting to know that even though both of them are anime, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust was actually made with American audiences in mind. And that being said, the word flaps are actually set to mimic English rather than Japanese. That's something a lot of people don't know. That was actually made for American audiences rather than a Japanese film that was transported.
Pardon me for a second. When you say word flaps,
I assume she means lip
The way the
flaps.
mouths move.
Yeah, the way the mouths move.
okay.
Yeah, that was actually done specifically for an English voice. That was not done for the Japanese like most anime was done. And the remastering is pretty nice. They did change the voices for the original Vampire Hunter D, which these are not films for kids. I know people like vampires and stuff like that, and there's a lot of crap like Twilight. But I have to say this quite bluntly, Vampire Hunter D is based more on the original old mythos of Dracula, and
It's about killing vampires.
it's about killing vampires, although he brings it to a very sci-fi twist in that it's 10,000 years in the future, and vampires are aliens, and actually the setting in which it's set, vampires are on the decline.
So I'm guessing then that at the end of it we discover that humans were the real monsters in the end, right?
No, but actually if you read the novel series, sometimes that does come up. But but beyond that, it's a very heated battle because the Vampire Hunter D, as you find out in the course of both films, is a Dhampir, and what that means is he's half human, half vampire. So not only does he have all the strengths of vampires, he also has all their weaknesses. And it works out to some very interesting circumstances, especially in the books. They mention it quite a bit, but he's so beautiful that both men and women fall in love with him immediately.
Are you sure you didn't watch Steven Universe?
Mhm.
But the remasters of these, I mean, the first one's pretty old, but the second film is less so. The remasters are actually very well done. Bloodlust especially shows that they cleaned up what little the original had to do, and it's very nicely done in high definition. For those interested, the character designs were made by the same person who does the art for Final Fantasy. So you're looking at some pretty art, without even mentioning the great plot.
When you say Final Fantasy, you mean the old games, right? Not the new ones with all the
Correct.
zippers and uneven shorts?
Okay. Thank you for
Uneven
clarifying.
Yes, I'm talking about the original,
All
like
right,
the
that's
first
good.
art or the promo art you'll see of the Final Fantasy
So
series still.
why did they make a Vampire Hunter D for the American audience?
Quite bluntly, as far as I understand it, at least with Bloodlust, they figured, and they did figure correctly, they would be able to get more of a powerhouse for the animation studios, and they were able to bring over some animation teams that they wouldn't have been able to bring over in the first place for that.
Huh.
But the remasters are very well done. The voice acting, they kept the same voice actors that were in Bloodlust, but the older of the two movies. And I'm sorry if I keep laughing every time I think about that. It's just the one word that I can think that encompasses the first movie is boob physics. Two words, excuse me.
So, Dr. Reef, as I understand it, you enjoy this thing called Mobile Suit Gundam?
Hey, you pronounced it right. Nice. So yeah, I recently got my hands on the new Blu-ray releases, the American Blu-ray releases, finally, of the original Mobile Suit Gundam. And if you don't know what Gundam is, that's, your prerogative. You're just wrong. Giant robots
Very
in space
sad.
fighting each other. What?
I'm not sure you can be wrong about not knowing of a thing.
You can be very wrong.
Morally.
Yeah. So anyway, but Mobile Suit Gundam basically is the originator of the Gundam franchise, and it's also the anime that kickstarted the real robot genre of giant robot fighting. So it's pretty cool. But the Blu-ray release for America, which finally is coming to fruition, is pretty phenomenal, actually. I mean, I usually am not a stickler for like image quality and that sort of thing. I still watch VHSs from time to time, but the remaster, they actually went back and took the 35 millimeter film and cleaned it up and redid everything,
Wow.
and it really doesn't look like it was made in 1979. And if it wasn't for the fact
No.
that the animation itself is kind of dated, it looks like it could have been made pretty recently.
I would say
Ah.
90s. Yeah, they
Yeah, I
did
mean-
a really good job on it.
I
So,
mean, they did a really good job cleaning it up, so
So-
I'm very pleased.
when it comes to anime, I tend to be I tend to be a bit of a stickler for dubbing. How like it's the original Mobile Suit Gundam dub, right, from the early
Yeah.
2000s. How was that?
I really like it, and I mean, you'll find varying opinions on it. The way it seems to
this
me,
would be Bandai, right?
yeah, it was their Canadian dubbing company at the time, and I mean, I've seen I've seen people kind of complaining about it for various reasons, but to me, I always thought it was a pretty darn good dub. And I'll tell you one thing, Brad Swale, he's the guy who plays the main character Amuro Ray, and he was also Light Yagami in Death Note, and he's a pretty good voice actor, and I always liked him. But the one who I think stands out the best is the guy who plays Char Aznavour, and his name is Michael Kopsa, and his voice is just perfect for Char. He needs to come back and be Char again in the Gundam Origin OVAs that they've been releasing. His voice is phenomenal. Like, if you do not watch any other English dub of Gundam, you have to watch the ones that he's in, because he's so good.
I must confess that I'm not the biggest fan of the Gundam Wing dub. So
The
long
Gundam
as
Wing
they're-
dub is, I feel like that one's a pretty early take on
Gundam
like,
was
dubbing.
Gundam Wing was like the very first to hit the U.S.,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it seems to me that was before they were really good at dubbing anime, so it was like, it was okay.
Yeah,
I think
a lot of dubbing companies were kind of learning how to do their trade back
Yeah.
then.
Back in those days, really only ADV had it down, and even then it was sort of spotty depending on the show. But yeah,
That
the
sounds
Blu-rays-
like foreboding.
but the Blu-rays are really good, and I recommend them to any fan of Gundam.
I'll probably check them out.
Ooh.
So GX, you've got a bunch of things listed here. Pick one.
I got some. I'll be pretty quick. So there's several things that I like
No, there's not.
in my various hobbies. One thing, and the video watchers of this will get a little treat. I am a big fan of things that involve robots. So
like
as
Gundam.
it's almost like Gundam. So,
It's not
like,
better.
Wally here, which I got the Lego set of. The Lego Ideas just released of him, and
Wally!
I spent my whole last Friday night sitting on my butt, decompressing from work, building Wally, and watching Wally on Blu-ray. And unfortunately, it took, well, not unfortunately, but it took a little bit longer than I expected to fully complete this 677-piece set. So as I was doing it, I was able to get through Wall-E and Big Hero 6 and a Rift Tracks movie. So I'm probably going to hold off my Disney talk for another episode, but it also kind of ties into another big robot series I've been watching, which has been... I'll give some quick context for this. I work in an office, a very specific, unusual kind of office, but basically I work on a lot of data entry, but I at least get headphones, and I only have so much music throughout the day that I can listen to. So I have a bunch of podcasts on my music mix. I have a bunch of music and playlists on my music list. And I also have a bunch of just DVD audio that I've ripped on my music list. And you obviously can't just have any show as in just a complete audio format. But there's some that I have seen so many times that it's like, I don't even need the visuals for this to enjoy it. So And one of those things was Futurama. And I gotta honestly say, Futurama is probably my favorite primetime animated show. I love Simpsons. Simpsons is an important part of my cultural heritage, I guess. But for me, it just always was. Futurama just went a little bit wilder. It went a little bit farther in terms of what it was willing to do, and it just kind of hit that sci-fi. You know what? I like these kind of references and things that you're going for. I felt like it was more consistently good throughout than Simpsons was. So I don't know if anybody.
Of course, it was also a lot shorter and made around the time when the Simpsons staff who would go on to work at Futurama really knew what they were doing at that point.
And that's
unfortunately,
true.
they left the Simpsons to new people who didn't know what they were doing.
I'm not gonna judge it there at this point, because I still like some of the, we'll say, seasons after 8. I know everyone says, 8 or 7 or whatever it is the last good one or something.
Until around season 10, I think.
I would say
very hit and miss.
I would say after, season 10, it would probably was a little bit.
But I want to hear more about your thoughts on Futurama, though.
Yeah, more specifically, I've watched it so many times. At this point, I was actually listening through, aside from me liking robots, the other part of me, I actually really like it whenever DVDs and Blu-rays have a good commentary track. And the nice thing about the Simpsons DVDs and the nice thing about the Futurama DVDs, every single episode has one commentary track. Some even have 2.
Wow.
I know, and
nuts.
Matt Groening's on almost every single one of them, which is a lot,
cool.
But it's very nice. But in Futurama, the other main producer, David X. Cohen, was on almost all of them as well. So I guess the best way for me to describe the commentary on it, not a lot of it always sticks with me, because a lot of it is just silly little stories, but I kind of wanted to take away with a couple things. Billy West and John DiMaggio and I've been telling myself this all week. Basically, they have a rather small voice cast doing a very large number of roles. Billy West alone does so many big characters in the series. He does Fry. He does Dr. Zoidberg. He does the Professor. He does Zap Brannigan. Those are not small parts. And they joke all the time because
Dr. Zoidberg.
There is a lot of situations where Billy is talking to himself.
Yeah.
There is probably one of the best deleted scene, or at least not the best, but the one that has always stuck with me for some reason. There's a deleted scene in the robot fighting episode, and I'm very glad that we are a little bit more lenient on language here, because effectively the whole scene is the character Mom at the robot fights, and her response to it is, "Make that bitch your bitch, you bastard." And I think David X. Cohen's response to that, and when we ran that through the censors, they only had 3 problems with it. So I enjoy that type of stuff. Billy West and John DiMaggio and Trace McNeil is who I was thinking of. They are on a lot of the episodes of commentary. There are episodes where Billy West just plays Dr. Like, there's an episode where Billy is just being Dr. Zoidberg the whole time and commenting on Dr. Zoidberg's performances, on how good they are every time it comes up. And it's just bizarre fun. So I recommend, hey, if you have them already, like maybe start at the season 2 or disc 2 commentaries. It gets better whenever they stop really trying to comment on it and just have weird conversations.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm going to hold off on talking about Batman. I still have a little bit farther to go with it, but I did just watch right before we recorded something I was expecting to be very disappointed in, but was actually surprisingly impressed and laughed at quite a lot.
Huh.
And it is the brand new Cartoon Network series, Be Cool, Scooby-Doo. At first blush, this looked visually, it looks
Family Guy.
bad. It looks like the Family Guy cutaway versions of those characters.
Oh, that makes sense. I've been trying to figure out how to explain that, and I was like, that sounds about right.
That's as good of an explanation as I can think of.
But the sense of humor it has is kind of closer to modern Disney Channel. Like, I would almost compare it to kind of the self-awareness of Phineas and Ferb or Gravity Falls. Like, I wouldn't say it's as good as those ones, but I think it is worth a few laughs. Like, it's definitely a funnier, more self-aware Scooby-Doo.
Well, I guess I'll give it a chance. I don't know. I had one of those episodes on mute, and I don't know. Looked a little too ridiculous. But
I mean,
I was doing something else at the time.
If you want ridiculous, then that's what it is. Like, if you want ridiculous on par with Phineas and Ferb, and I don't know if you've seen Phineas and Ferb.
Mm-hmm. Really, on par with Phineas and Ferb?
I would say that it's that kind of humor.
Okay, so not necessarily as good, but a similar tone at least.
I mean, I'll give anything a chance because I watched a pup named Scooby-Doo. So
the problem is I can't make that judgment call yet because I've literally only seen one episode. But that was an episode where I was laughing quite a bit just because of some of the ridiculous things that were going on. It's kind of like, it is almost in a sense like if Daphne were Mabel from Gravity Falls. Like, that's kind of the comparison I made.
She was going out of her way to wear a beard the entire time.
In the first episode that I saw, she had puppets, and she had puppets of all the gang, and for some reason she was only communicating via puppets. Like, she would only talk to anybody.
That's better than just the bland, pretty girl she was in the original series.
I mean, it's weird. It is a weird version of Scooby-Doo, but I think that it's at least funny, which is something that you can't always say about all Scooby-Doos.
Most Scooby-Doos.
I will disagree.
I know. But I made my feelings on Scooby-Doo quite clear last episode.
Your situation is more externally motivated, let's say.
So anyway, we've let's move on to our main topic of the show: Mashable Shopping Arcade or Benobashi.
Yep.
Now, I went into this series completely. I had no idea what it was.
Wait, really?
You just said a series of words to me, and I was like, oh. That is a show title, I guess. It sure does sound Japanese.
Well, Tori showed me one episode. Tori showed me one episode, which was nothing like the rest of the series, as it turns out.
Which episode did he show you, out of curiosity?
The first one.
Yeah, that's nothing like the rest of the series.
But
I don't like jumping into the middle of anything, even if I'm rewatching it.
He just told
what
me
if it's a lake?
He just told me it was nuts, and it was from Gainax. And at the time, I also was not aware of Gainax's library, which also contained FLCL, or Fooly Cooly, Gurren Lagann, and Panty and Stocking.
And Evangelion?
And Evangelion.
The original completely insane.
Secret of the Blue Water. Yeah, they have some pretty crazy people over there at
They set the
Gainax.
bar high for psychosis.
And of course another crazy show, Kill la Kill, was made by one of the guys who used to be from Gainax.
And Nadia and Mahoromatic.
And Imichu.
But yeah,
Were they responsible for Gunbuster and Diebuster? I
Yes,
can't.
Yes, they were.
Which
So
there are references in Magical Shopping Arcade of Benabashi as well.
I yeah. Before some of those. Well, wait, I'm getting ahead of things. But so basically, like the nice thing about this series is that it's very easy to describe. But the unfortunate thing is that
It is.
Is that
Please enlighten me.
A description
Describe
won't do it justice. A description won't do it justice. It's about these two 12-year-old kids, Sashi and Irami, who they live in this shopping arcade, which for most people who don't know, like when I first heard the name Magical Shopping Arcade or Benabashi, I thought it was either a magical girl show or I don't know, something about some sort of video arcade.
It's a commercially zoned area
shopping arcade is
in
essentially
Osaka.
a mall. It's essentially a mall.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a shopping arcade in Osaka, which is apparently the Japanese equivalent of Texas. And
more or less.
Yeah,
it's kind
that's
of pumpkin-y.
And
pumpkin.
Sashi just came back from summer camp, and his not really girlfriend Arume is moving to Osaka. Is moving to Hokkaido.
Yes.
Sashi's old house has been demolished, but basically his entire life is kind of being uprooted. The shopping arcade itself is in this economic downturn. Everyone's leaving, and his entire life is changing. And essentially, by the end of the episode, Arumi's grandpa takes a tumble off off a roof, trying to move a cat off of this sacred pelican statue, which is apparently one of the linchpins of the shopping arcade. Which, of course, I had no idea what that meant, but apparently after this happened, the pelican supposedly broke, and crazy things started happening.
Crazy thing.
Yeah, crazy things started happening. The shopping arcade just turned into a magical. It just turned into this piece of land in front of a magical castle in the middle of this fantasy RPG world, and.
The long and short of it is that
of Sashi and Arumi going from essentially these different parody worlds, going through all these crazy adventures, trying to get home, or at least one of them is trying to get home. And this is a series that it relies heavily on knowledge of Japanese history, knowledge of Japanese pop culture. And it is not an especially friendly series for people who have not watched much anime and don't know much about Japan. Like,
it also relies on a knowledge of Japanese religion. You are actually talking about it with the 4 saint beasts.
Yes.
Right.
The pelican itself would represent. Would it be Suzaku?
That sounds correct.
I don't.
It's been a while since I did the 4 god spirits.
I'm more familiar with them through Yu Yu Hakusho myself.
That's fair. I don't feel that you necessarily have to have a strong knowledge of Japanese religions to get it, but definitely a knowledge of the way Japan works and the way that anime works is
what I'm
going
going to suggest is the same way that I did it. And the way that I did it was...
Look at the wiki.
Look at the wiki. It tells you who... It tells you who the main. Now I'm forgetting his name.
Abe no Seimei.
Abe no Seimei. It just do that. Follow the link to there. Read a little bit about who exactly he is. Read a little bit about what the background of the show is. It it will kind of spoil the mystery of it, but to me, it's the only thing that really got me hooked into actually getting through the end of it.
Alternatively, the series does more or less explain it. I haven't actually really read any of that stuff, but
They explain it really fast, though.
Yeah.
Like they kind of assume, hey, you probably at least have a vague familiarity with
I mean, for
some
me,
of this stuff.
in terms of my unfamiliarity with Japanese culture, I kind of felt things going over my head with the military movie episode.
Oh, true. Well, the thing is that from what I've read of Abe no Seimei and just the Onmyo stuff in general, it seems to be basically Japanese fairy tale kind of stuff. So it's probably something that some kids, or most kids, or adults at least, would be familiar with on a very tangential level, in the same way that we know about like King Arthur and Excalibur and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
So now that I've mostly explained the premise, now for me and GX, we both came in here into this fresh. So I'm wondering how the rest of you kind of first experienced it and what you thought when you first saw it.
With me, I actually have known about this anime since it was being released in Japan. I actually saw it as it was coming out in 2002. And I first saw the dub when it was brought over, I want to say 2003 or 2004.
Yeah, that's about right.
Oh,
I know it was. Yeah, it was about a year or two later, and I also own the manga. So I've known about this series for quite some time. One of the things that basically Gainax did in this series, it's not just a giant love letter. To me, the whole series is not just a giant love letter to the mythology and to the ideas of the post-war rebuilding Japan, which has a definite theme in the entire series. But it's also a love letter to Gainax itself. And for anybody who's not familiar with Gainax, that is the animation studio that produced the series. And it's considered to be one of the premier animation studios, much as Miyazaki is in Japan, or perhaps Disney or Warner Brothers is over here.
Yeah, I mean, just to look at all the titles we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's essentially what I got from this series. It's basically tying everything about post-war Japan, I would say, nervousness, going from trying to rebuild to basically having a burnout and recession. But at its heart, it very much is a coming-of-age story as well. But that's something, again, that is very much with Gainax's mythos. Most of their stories tend to be in that vein of a young person growing into their power or growing into who they will be.
Yeah, this series is most definitely about kind of Sashi being forced to leave behind his childhood.
Well, yeah, it's definitely got a lot of those overt coming-of-age themes. It's just also completely insane. So,
well, it wouldn't be Gainax if it were insane. So, brief. How did you first experience it?
Yeah. Well, a long time ago.
Before we continue, I don't know if you're able to do this, Reef. Can you unplug and replug your microphone because you're crackling really bad?
I thought that was just.
Okay.
I thought that was just my connection. It does that sometimes. Darn.
No, it's him.
By the way, an interesting thing to note is the characters, and this is both in the Japanese and the English version. If you do know Gainax stories, a lot of the same voice actors that did previous works, such as Ava, or other works like Gunbuster, Ebichu, His and Her Circumstances, the same voice actors are doing parts in this series, and that's both in the Japanese and the English editions.
Well, given the way they did the dubbing, which we'll talk about in a bit, I wouldn't have noticed. So,
Well, then I guess I should go since
sure.
I'm the one who talked you into watching it.
Yeah.
Granted, I can't say anything nearly as significant as Oh, I forgot what your handle is, Robin.
Saber.
Okay. Yeah, Saber. Okay, there we go. I was introduced to it in about 2008 while I was in college, and at the time I had been watching Gurren Lagann,
Hmm.
and my sweet mate, rather weird guy, he decided to introduce me to it. I have no idea what got him into it, but I can only imagine fan service.
Well, we talking about that too.
Yeah,
Well,
so
we'll talk about it. Don't worry.
so I don't know. Going through it and rewatching it these past few days was kind of like watching it for the first time, because the only thing I really carried away from it back then, and I watched the whole thing, was that it was an entirely random. And
Except that it isn't, but
well, it made a lot more sense to me this time than it did
Yeah.
last time. But just so many various different worlds that they were going to, and the only things that really stuck with me were probably the space robot episode, mainly due to some similarities that it held with Gurren Lagann, and the war
Yeah.
episode. That one really stuck with me. I'm not entirely sure why that one in particular did.
It's kind of interesting because the space episode had a lot of things that looked like they would be right at home in Gurren Lagann, even though it
But it
predates it by
predates it.
by a
Well-
long time.
what
So-
happened with at least production? I would say about 50% of the animation team went on to make Gurren Lagann, and they actually started their own production company.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me.
That's probably one of my favorite episodes in the series too.
It's a really good episode, yeah.
But Reef, now that your microphone is fixed,
Excellent, excellent.
talk to us.
So, a long time ago, somebody I knew wrote a story that was very thematically inspired by Abenabashi, and so I was like, I think I'll watch this show because it looks a lot like, or it sounds a lot like this story, and so I just watched through it, and I was like, oh yeah, I could see this reference and that reference, and it was a lot of fun, and it was neat because it sort of, the story that I read sort of acted as a primer to that, but it wasn't so close that I had any idea what was going to happen. So it was really exciting when all these reveals started to come along, and I was like, whoa, I didn't even see that coming at all.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it, and I think that on a second rewatch, I think I probably even liked it better because I knew where the foreshadowing was, and there is a decent amount of foreshadowing if you know where to look. But
Yeah, I didn't know. I saw the first episode twice, and that whole thing about Omnio Mystics, I missed it both times.
exactly,
My
yeah,
brain didn't think this is something important. And the other episodes, they don't really talk about this stuff. It's something that's slowly reintroduced.
yeah.
And then at the end of the series, it pretty much tells you to go back to the beginning. You go, oh, so that's what that was.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you also know where to look for, like the Abe no Seimei guy and Mune and everyone. So it's fun because you can see where the threads are that weave through all these different parallel worlds that make them similar.
And for me, that's what was so fun about going into this series completely blind and not even. I didn't read a darn thing about this. I just took Corey's word for it, and it was fun trying to kind of piece all these things together for me because there were obviously there was something going on there. That much seemed obvious.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I did, and then when the big revelations came, I was like, oh, that completely changes my perspective.
Right.
So GX, you also came into this fresh. So
Yes.
just thought.
What aspect do you want me to go into?
Really,
Just my general overview?
Your general overview, you know, how you first came into it and everything.
I first came into it when you said this was the one that we're going to watch next, and then I put it off, and then I finished watching it today.
Yeah, and come on, talk about it.
To what detail do you want me to discuss it now? Like, do you want me to get right into
Just the
it?
series as a whole, your overall opinion.
Okay. I'm going to give a primer. People like to use, I think people like to use the, I guess, friendlier version of the concept by calling it fan service. But let's call a spade, it's a sex joke.
Yeah.
Let me give you the primer of sex jokes as represented in all anime. Women have breasts. Men are sexually awkward, but horny all the time. There is typically a non-sexualized second woman who then hurts the man. You have now enjoyed all Japanese sex humor.
I wouldn't go that far, but you haven't seen Kill la Kill yet, so I'll let that slide.
Thankfully, that is why I was complaining a lot. I am not against sex humor. I mean, for the love of God, yesterday I watched John Oliver gracefully carry a giant carved wooden phallus.
What? No, don't answer that.
I watched Futurama. Futurama is filled with sex humor. I had a really hard time even getting through this because the first couple episodes are just. That's why I kind of have to put my head in my hand when you guys were talking about the space episode. I thought the space episode was the worst. It was the worst freaking episode. It's like you have the young boy, like, okay, he's peeing into space, that's fine, but then they put the camera right there so it looks like he's peeing on the audience. The whole plot is that a goblin steals her panties and wears them on. It's like. It's not even that it's random, it's just that it's so crude. It's just, it's going for lowest common denominator anime humor. It's like, why? What are you doing here?
Well, I mean, the show, that episode wasn't just sex.
That episode was. That episode was.
There was of humor about giant robots, about sci-fi.
Not the giant robots. There were the trio of girls, one of which was a man who were wearing the chest equivalent of a G-string.
Yep.
Mizaki was a woman.
And
herself.
Miss Aki is a woman. She's just an older woman and
sure.
And ugly.
Transgendered.
Sure.
Yeah,
fine.
possibly.
Whatever. My point still stands. And meanwhile, we have the underage girl who is trying to hide her crotch the entire time.
Yep.
Because the whole linchpin of the episode is that they stole her freaking panties. Jesus Christ, Japan.
So, to summarize the episode after the panties are stolen.
So I'm gonna try to push ahead a little bit because that theme went on for a while, and the only time whenever I actually saw some decent reprieve from it was that one episode that I actually really kind of thought was done well. I liked the show whenever it was on point, whenever it was telling the story, and whenever the parodies of things were actually being the parodies of things and not just random silly nonsense.
So which episode are you?
I really liked the Mafia episode.
I knew you were going to say that because I was going down the list and I was like, I know which one.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Very well done episode.
I like that one because it was very thematic. And all the jokes were on point. And I have to give them that it was pretty darn clever that their concept of killing someone was whenever someone got shot, that they just became a tiny chibi comic relief character.
Yes.
Because those are the types of characters that can get shot and not die.
Yeah.
So I like the overarching story. Like, I like the whole Abe no Seme aspect of it, and the fact that Miss Mune was in relation to that and that there is an underlying mystery. But the episode-to-episode stories that they were telling, they haven't they were telling a good emotional story underneath it, but you can't layer, or you certainly can't start by having just pointless nonsense with it. You can't have both. It would be like if suddenly partway through Bobobo, they started going into, well, what's the real lore of this place? Why is it so important? And it just became it had all these weird underlying things that were self-serious.
You mean that didn't happen?
No, thank
Oh,
God.
well, then what's the point of watching it?
To be confused and to enjoy weird Shonen Jump parody and just genre parody. Like, I like the stuff in it that was genre parody.
Mm.
It's just that it felt like they didn't do genre parody well consistently. Yeah,
Well, I definitely say that the first 5 episodes are pretty spastic in a lot of ways. Well, I guess the first episode is not super spastic, but
the first episode's fine. It's just that you can't go from the first episode to the second episode where they're freaking looking and acting like Looney Tunes characters.
Well, that's kind of the thing about Gainax in general, is that a lot of their series will, at least from my experience, will tend to have a lot of a lot of varying tones.
yeah.
Like from episode to episode, even within an episode. Like Gurren
Even
Lagann.
Evangelion had some really silly aspects, some
Yeah.
very small parts that were very juxtaposed against the whole rest of the series.
But the problem is, it just completely undercuts anything that they actually want to say.
Well,
I think,
for
though,
me-
in hindsight... What's that?
No, go on.
I was going to say, I think in hindsight, it's kind of, in a way, somewhat appropriate, considering where these worlds are coming from.
I was actually about to go into that. For me, the drastic shifts in tone make a lot of sense and make this a very interesting series to watch, because essentially we're going from the real world to the worlds inside the mind of a 12-year-old boy who's been watching too much movies and television and playing way too many dating sims.
Yeah.
And is horny all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And like, and for me, like a lot of this stuff, the series kind of made more sense in hindsight to me, became better in hindsight to me when I began to understand the source of everything.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think a rewatch is really amusing, because when you're going through the first couple episodes, they're not just these wacky, zany worlds they end up in. They're this is the mind of Sashi at work, and you know he's not the sharpest light bulb in the toolbox. So.
Then like on the second rewatch of it, began to see, no, these aren't just crazy worlds. This is Sashi getting away from his problems, taking this girl with him.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is Sashi hiding things.
All these different stories and all these different worlds and genres that he loves.
The problem is, I see that, and they actually directly address that. But it just becomes... well, the other problem I guess I'll go into is I found Sashi and Arumi just completely unsympathetic.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing, they hadn't earned any bit of sympathy from me, because he was horny nerd all the time, and she was angry girl. And if they have any more depth than that, it never really showed, except in these weird off moments. Like there's no depth to them as characters. They haven't earned the right for me to give a crap about them in these worlds they're in.
I would argue that the only reason or the only ways you get depth in this series, and for me this is also a form of, I guess, a signal that you see them shifting from childhood to adulthood, the times you get actual depth and character development are the times where they're in or have to deal with the real world.
Yeah.
It seems like a poor way to handle it, though. Like
It may be, but
like if you look specifically at Arumi, she's the one that is closer to all this. She is the one that is wanting to go home and accept this. It's Sashi who doesn't. and she is just as spastic and weird and kind of pseudo accepting of all this nonsense as she is. And you would expect, specifically in an anime, that she would play the role of being the one who's grounded. And there is no character in all of this to be grounded except for, I forget the name that
Sachi's
Satan actually
father?
takes for himself.
Who?
Eudes?
Eudes, thank you.
Eudes.
Like he's the only character that actually seems any bit grounded to all of this, and he's maybe one of the couple of characters I actually got something out of.
No, that's completely fair. I will agree with that. This series isn't one as much as it's exactly as you say. It's not a series that's meant to be taken seriously. It's not a series that you're supposed to read too in depth. I mean, part of the point.
I think they need to they need to bring out some of this story earlier on. Like this series is just so front loaded with the craziness that having all the important stuff in the back half of it, I've already checked out on these characters. You've already lost me because I don't care. All I've seen these two characters do the whole entire time are be dicks and bicker.
Saber, what were you saying?
Well, the thing is, as I was trying to say earlier, part of the reason I enjoy it is because it's a deconstruction both of Gainax and of a lot of anime tropes. But if you don't go into the series knowing that, if you don't go into the series understanding or having the knowledge of those concepts and Gainax as a studio...
I'm going to stop you because following the tropes is not necessarily a breakdown of the tropes, and there was a lot of tropiness out of all of this.
Yes, but it's
ahead.
essentially it's a love letter. It's a love letter to the fans. It's a love letter to the actual studio. It's not meant to be heavy. It's not meant to be anything great or deserving of an Oscar. It was never made with that intention.
But they went there. That's the thing. Like the whole thing of it is that it's a story about a man having an affair and a murder-suicide and this other person trying to bring them back to life. Like, they wanted that serious moment, and I liked the serious moment, but everything surrounding it just didn't feel like it worked towards that.
But the series takes place from both the viewpoint and mindset of a 12-year-old boy. And that's part of the reason that all of that, I guess you could say, that unpacking of the seriousness comes at the end. And it comes when he's starting to grow up, if you'll notice as well. They pack a lot of their series like that. That's something they're known for.
So, Corey, what do you think of all these of the criticism of GX's criticism?
I don't know. I kind of came away from it a bit differently than he did. I wasn't nearly bothered by the boob humor nearly as much as he was. But
It's not just the boob humor.
I don't know. I kind of I was a lot more sold on the two main characters than he was whenever I watched it, mainly towards the second half, after some of it was more explained. I started watching it more as a series about a boy who is in serious denial about the events that are going on, and he's desperately trying to get away from it. In a sense, both of the characters are in denial, and they're taking it different ways. Arami wants to continue on with her life the way it was, and Sashi wants to get away from it completely. As much as I enjoyed Eudes in the story, I kind of really didn't consider him all that important, aside from a machine to give some background to the story, to act as someone who went through some similar experiences to Sashi,
And I
although
will
he was
definitely agree
older.
with that.
older and more experienced in what. Well, no, I don't even think you can say that because he didn't even know that the ritual that he went through actually ever worked or not.
Oh no, he knew it worked because he showed up in the modern day Tokyo.
Well, what I mean is before he tried it, he said there was no recorded incident of the
Right.
ritual actually working.
Well,
So,
yeah.
for all he knows, this is the first time it ever worked.
True, true.
So, after that, the story really just kind of keeps trying to force Sashi into accepting the situation. Even Arami, because she keeps trying to get him to take them back home. So he's just trying to cope with all of that, and the silliness for me is just all escapism.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of view
Now,
this.
I will disagree with you on one thing. I think that having Abe no Seimei there is somewhat important because his existence kind of justifies why Sashi can do all this since he is, in fact, his grandfather. So,
Which is
I mean, without
If-
him, he really doesn't have the ability to create all these fake worlds.
I was going to say, which is interesting in the very aspect of spoilers, Shashi being the reincarnation of the Grand Master, who
That
trained,
too.
who trained his grandfather, which I think is a hilarious. It's not a paradox, but it's interesting.
Well, he's a reincarnation, so
Right,
it's not
that's
a
what I
paradox
mean.
at all. Yeah.
But it's hilarious to me.
Well, he does. There is a big theme of fate and everyone's fate being linked and not being able to change fate. So it's kind of it makes sense really when you get right down to it.
Now, I have a question then about the ending of it, because
Oh,
the
God.
video I was watching kind of cut out.
Okay.
Now, did it end with them preventing his grandfather from dying?
Yes.
If his grandfather doesn't die and they don't get and the job in Hokkaido goes away.
Okay, that feels like a cop-out to me.
Yeah.
That feels like it completely goes against everything that it was supposed to be saying.
I admit I'm still processing the ending myself.
I got mad at it.
I have to disagree insofar as the entire point of the latter half of the series was Sashi trying to figure out, hey, can I stop, what's his name, Grandpa, whoever, from
Masa.
dying?
Masa.
Grandpa Masa. Yeah, so he's like, can I stop him from dying? And Abe no Seimei is like, no, you can't do that. It doesn't work. I tried it. And so he's like, can I do this? Can I do this? Yes, if you believe you can do it. And eventually he ended up being able to change that fate.
But
And the other
everyone else was kind of like that. That was kind of the point. Is like all these things are saying, and then suddenly he just does it. It's like the whole process is, oh, I'm gonna escape from this. I'm gonna escape from this. I'm gonna change it. Oh, my grandfather tried to do this, and it just screwed things up. It's like it just feels like they were trying to say something the whole time, and what is the point of it now? Well, the point is not, hey, you have to grow up. The point of it is, oh, I asked for help, and apparently I have the soul of someone else in me I'm linked to, so magic happy ending.
That's part of it, but it's not quite. The only reason that he was able to change it, yes, he is the reincarnation, but if you'll notice, when he comes up out of the water, he's not Sashi anymore. The point being that Sashi is a child, he doesn't have that ability. He can want whatever he wants in life, and he can't do it. It's only when he is at the full maturity of his knowledge and his power, basically.
That still feels like a cop out. That's just saying, hey, I wanted to be this, and then suddenly he's the older one. Like
I feel like I'll have to agree with GX here on the ending. For what I was saying earlier about him having to come to terms and accept this, whenever he just Supermaned the ending, that really just hurt the credibility of the show for me because everyone was trying to encourage him, like especially his dad, to accept what happened and move on, and he just rejected it to the point of breaking the plot.
But the thing that makes it different for me is that it wasn't entirely for himself. Not only did he rectify his selfish wish, obviously that Arami didn't move away, and Grandpa Massa didn't die, but he solved the problem with his grandparents, who his grandmother, who'd been constantly searching, constantly heartbroken with a spirit that didn't rest, finally is with the man that she wanted to be with, and he is finally with her, and they don't have to deal with the bad history that came between the three of them.
And I think the other thing for me is that throughout the whole series, they're like, you can't do it, you can't do it. And right where he kind of got to the point where he started to believe everybody, he's like, wait a minute, yes, I can. And I think that it was more of a overcoming the negativity of others kind of situation, because it seems to me that the spell worked, because he did bring back Mune and Masa the first time, so that they lived in modern Japan. So the idea worked in principle. It's just that for some reason everyone was very negative about this particular situation not working. And I think that for me, the ending works because he finally overcame the adults saying, no, you can't do it, and he just did it.
Now, both all you guys bring up some interesting points regarding the ending, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. But one thing I am not especially happy about is that it does seem to negate all of the character development that happens by the end of the series.
It does and it doesn't.
I'm unsure about that.
Well, with Grandpa Masa, the thing is, you'll notice that he's very accepting of the new couple, Abe and Mune, when they come in to revitalize the area. There is no bad blood. And he even says before he thinks he's going to die that, yeah, I didn't get Mune, but you know what? I've had a good life. Things didn't work out the way that perhaps they were predestined to, but he still found something worth living for, and he still found joy in his life and has accepted that. If you want to look at it from the kid's point of view, yes, she's not moving away, but also her grandfather's not dead.
Well, I wouldn't call that character development per se, though I am mostly referring to Sashi.
But I mean, character development, I would argue that Sashi, as much as he's still a child, but having done that at his future self, for me, that just almost cements that when he grows up, he's going to be even more aware. I don't know how to exactly put it.
Well, it kind of negates what he is. Like, that is almost unless he has reintroduced it, like, that history didn't exist.
I am of the belief that, while I'm not sure if they necessarily remember it, but I think that the experience still exists somewhere inside of them, because you can tell at the end of the last episode their personalities are a little bit different. Well, I guess sorry about that. I guess that Aramis isn't super different, because it didn't seem to me that she grew all that much as far as the character goes, but Sashi was a lot more mature at the end there. So I think that either he does remember it, or the experience still changed his personality, even if he doesn't consciously remember it happening.
I think this is probably just going to be a situation of agree to disagree at this point, but okay. I kind of want to maybe shift the conversation.
Actually, as I understand it, GX, you also weren't a big fan of Gurren Lagann, am I right?
What?
Now, the context is
you're a terrible person.
Because I want to talk about this in the context of Gainax itself now.
Well, that's going to be actually where I was going, because another issue I kind of had with this is that as someone who really likes comedy, this is just, it's hectic, it's spastic, its pacing is just crazy. It's just fast, go, 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 next thing. You don't have any time to really process anything because it's already on the next joke and it's already moving ahead. It's just, I don't care for that style just because it doesn't give you time to actually enjoy anything or process anything. Or
for me, that's what I love about Gainax is how hectic and crazy it is, and you won't catch all the visual cues and jokes on the first watch, and so when you go back to it, you can find new stuff every time you go back to rewatch it.
The problem is, I didn't like it enough to want to go back a second time.
But I love the energy of Gynax's series. But the thing I kind of find interesting about this series is that it sits in kind of the grand pantheon of Gynax. It sits in something of a weird place where it's not nearly as crazy as, say, Fooly Cooley, which is just an LSD trip. Pretty much throughout 90% of the whole darn thing.
And actually, it's funny because I'm fine with the LSD trip anime. It's whenever it's the LSD trip, but we also kind of want to tell a story. You can't have both. I don't think having both works.
As far as I'm concerned, it works great because Fooly Cooley, Gurren Lagann, they all do this stuff. They're all crazy. But they also try to tell a story. And by and large, I do enjoy the stories that Gynax tries to tell in the way Gynax tries to tell it. Mm-hmm. Like FLCL, it's this crazy show. But if you watch it closely, if you watch it over again, you start to see that it's not just a show about a kid having where all these things keep crawling their way out of his head, and it ends in this crazy. I can't even describe the ending to this series. It's just so crazy. But just go watch. It's only 6 episodes. It's about puberty. This series. It's about much like this series. It's about a kid kind of dealing with all these new feelings.
Looking at Gynax's list, it's like half of them are coming of age stories in one sense or another. Even Evangelion is.
And I love their really unique take of coming of age stories.
Yeah.
Where everything is frantic, where everything is new, and everything is.
It captures.
You don't know what's going to happen.
It captures really the way a teenager thinks quite well. Most of these series. Now, GX, you were going to say something. Sorry.
For me, the kind of idealized version of the hey, it's crazy, but we also want to tell a story has always kind of been Paranoia Agent. To me, that show is just. It does some of the same types of ideas, but to me it tells them in a much better way.
I didn't know Paranoia Agent had a story.
I haven't seen it
I kind of will agree with Reef on this. I know what the overlying story is, but episodic-wise, you really don't get that point.
Like, I watched the first, 15 or 16 episodes, and eventually I just kind of lost interest because I was like, is this going to go anywhere ever?
Maybe it's possible I could be misremembering it a little bit. I just remember...
Plus, there's basically not any humor in that at all that I can think of.
That's also true. That's also true, but at the same time, Gynax humor in general just doesn't click with me. It just feels...
I do think that if there's anything that's going to click with you in terms of Gynax humor, it's Kill la Kill from Studio Trigger, which again is
definitely not going to be Ibichu.
No, it's not.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No.
If he didn't like this, I don't think he'll like Kill la Kill.
Well, like I said, I have no problem with sex humor. But here's my theory about comedy and sex. Comedy and sex is not about having attractive people being with awkward people. Comedy and sex is about nudity combined with people who aren't attractive. It's about having maybe attractiveness, but really unexpectedly. And kind of what I was thinking in my head whenever I was coming up with this is that I kind of look at Simpsons or Futurama, and there's nudity in those shows. There's tons of sex jokes in those shows, but it's not about, hey, here's this person that I can really only describe as a bimbo who's just kind of clueless and doesn't care if they're treated sexually, and they're gonna thrust all over this really awkward male character. It's about these kind of people that you probably don't want to see
But
naked or want to see in that situation, or it's about real people reacting in a real way.
Well,
It's not about sexuality and awkwardness. It's about sexuality and confidence.
I will come out and say that the Mune Mune Sasha's face going to Mune Mune's boobs jokes got called very quickly.
It's really stupid. Like it's just.
Saber, you're gonna say?
I was going to say the other thing that you have to keep in mind is the kind of show you're describing versus the kind of show we're describing. There's a whole different set of sexual regiments, just society-wise.
I know Japan is different. Japan
It's Japan.
I get that, but
they're very visual. Whereas if you go for the more conservative American set, you're going to get those kind of jokes.
Well, the interesting thing about
I would be fine with that if it was an identity to a show. But that's the kind of identity I see in all the shows. It's always that same type of joke structure. Like, honestly, my favorite sexuality joke humor in anime is probably Space Dandy. And they don't really show much in it. It's just because he's not weird, awkward teenager.
He's just a weird, awkward adult.
No. He is a guy that exudes confidence. He knows about his sexuality. It makes up his character, and it's used in such a way that doesn't necessarily make sexuality for titillation, but it makes sexuality in a way that it defines the world.
I'm just going to interject one thing here, just so you're aware. Space Dandy was written for American audiences.
That's the first time I've heard
That's
that.
fine, but it wasn't written by American writers.
No, but I want you to be aware that's why the sensibilities are quite different.
I'm just not sure that's entirely relevant myself, but that's fine.
I can see why it would probably be relevant, but...
So I would like to talk about the dub a little bit, because when I first heard this series, I was kind of put off by the accents.
I was cringing.
Anime and accents. Again, I get flashbacks from 4Kids. With New York Sanji and their Texan Nico Robin. You know, these really awful accents. But over the course of the series, the accents really grew on me. But by the end of it, I was like, yeah, this is a good dub.
That's actually what Saber said, too. That's kind of funny. Now, for me, it doesn't really faze me any because, I mean, I've seen such bad dubs in the past. But I always liked the idea, and this is something that I know at least ADV did for their entire tenure. I always liked the idea that people from Osaka had a southern accent because they're culturally, at least, not necessarily culturally similar, but they are culturally distinct in the same way that Southern people are culturally distinct in our country. So I always kind of got a kick out of the idea. And I'm glad they went with it as a going theme, too.
Well, as I understand it, even like the way they talk in Osaka is somehow can be equated to
exactly.
Accent. Like this one thing that Irame kept saying at the beginning, which was being human, having your health, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
That sounds like something a Southerner would say. That sounds like something your Southern mother would say, you know?
And I always get a kick out of it because I don't know enough about the different cultures in Japan to really get this judgment, but it seems to me that the people from Osaka and animes have been consistently very down to earth and reasonable. Yeah, folksy, exactly. Okay. And I like that about this series because it's consistent with my completely probably wrong worldview of Osaka.
And the banjo music this series occasionally sported, as well as Sashi's cowboy hat, certainly assisted with the whole southern feel of it too.
Yeah. But again, it's an ADV dub, and generally speaking, they do good work. So I thought, even if the southern accents are off putting it first, I think that they're good enough that they grow on you. So.
Does anyone want to talk about Mizaki?
Who?
Mizaki. Isn't that his name?
Mizaki.
The transgendered woman.
Oh
No,
no,
Miss Aki.
Miss Aki. Yes.
She was such a non-part of it that it's like I think the only
Actually,
thing worth bringing up is
I
that
would-
she exists and that people didn't make a big deal about it, except occasionally making a joke
Yeah,
that she's not
You know how you
attractive.
say that sex humor is funny when it's about unattractive people? What about Misaki and her part?
confident.
Every single female.
She's very
scene,
confident.
That's
you
true.
know, she was there.
It had its moments. I wouldn't say it wasn't uproariously funny. I think the extent of their joke was, oh, she's like that. Oh boy, like it's not really a thinker.
Well,
Go on.
the thing about Misaki, whatever, is that despite being transgendered, she's treated like that gay character in that anime.
Yeah, she is.
That gay character that has absolutely no standards and will flirt with everyone. As much as I do tend to enjoy these characters like Liron in Fire Emblem, Liron from Gurren Lagann in Fire Emblem from Tiger and Bunny, I just I don't know. Mainly it's GX's rant about sex humor that made me think about this, specifically because this seems to be something that I notice whenever a gay person is in like a flamboyant gay person is in an anime. I was just wondering what anyone had any thoughts about that.
Really, whenever I see one of these characters, I just keep in mind that Japan can be kind of prudish about these things,
Yeah.
especially gay marriage and gayness in general. And so it's like, okay, I'm not surprised by this. I'm not especially happy by the characterization, but so long as it's just part of Japanese culture. It's what I'm going to get.
I think it's kind of interesting that I'll say she. I think it's kind of interesting she was completely accepted by the kids.
Yeah.
Usually the kids are the ones that are going to be like, oh, weird, and make fun of those kind of people.
She was accepted in the real world. In every other presentation, she
I
was
hardly
kind of the
think
joke
those
character.
count. Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know that the fake worlds count necessarily insofar as the actual character.
At the very least, Arumi didn't treat her especially different, we'll say.
Yeah, and I mean, Sashi didn't get too weirded out when she was kind of flirty-ish with him.
Well, I mean, the problem is your logic of, oh, these worlds are in his memory, I mean, that kind of has to go both ways. Like, if you look at the way that she, as a character, was treated in the space episode, in the war episode, I mean, it is kind of reflective of perhaps his odd attitude towards that. But at the same time, you might also say his expectations towards that, which, I mean, that kid definitely has some issues, we'll say.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
Especially the reflection of his sister in those worlds.
Which
that is Japanese at F.
That is something I hadn't even considered until just now.
I've considered that, and again, and maybe this is just insight from me, having 3 brothers growing up, that is not that abnormal, no matter the culture you're in.
And
his grandmother, too.
Grandmother, yes. I mean, that's weird too, man.
To be fair, he didn't know until pretty close to the end. So.
That was at least a Luke Skywalker situation.
Yeah.
But he continued.
Although she would have had to know.
Maybe. It's hard to tell for sure.
She didn't actually believe him when he said he was her grandson, though.
But they were talking about her at the beginning of the series, like while she was still old and running the bath house.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell exactly which version of Mune is the one that
is real.
Yeah, like where in time she came from, or if she's just an echo of the original one.
Sashi seemed to think that he was a spirit.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go back before Corey changed his subject. I'm just going to say I had a really hard time tolerating the voices of Sashi and Arumi. Like, I had a hard freaking time with it just throughout. I don't think that it's not even a matter of the accent. I just don't think those voices fit those characters well. I just I feel like maybe they just picked someone who could do an okay Southern/Western accent and then just went with it. But I just felt like even throughout the whole thing, it also felt like there was weird sound mixing, we'll say. It felt like the characters' volume mixing was just very flat and on top of things, that their voices were not influenced at all with what environment is going on around them. And the music was fine. I felt like maybe it was lacking in some environmental sound. And part of this is because I'm becoming a little bit more sensitive to that between I've listened to One Piece with headphones on my during my work, and Funimation does phenomenal sound mixing with One Piece. I'm always very impressed about listening to how they layer things, listening to how they place music where they start music, where they stop music. Going to this, it made me notice that it feels very flat. It feels very plain. And it just doesn't feel like voices match as well as they could. And there's even a lot of places where the writing is so dense that the translation makes them talk really, really fast through it.
Well, I will say I'm not. I will not be listening to the soundtrack of this series. In fact, I'm not even entirely sure what music I'm going to use for the podcast. 'Cause even the opening for this show, despite how crazy the actual show is, the opening is very. For one, doesn't even use any original animation, but it's also very tame.
It doesn't really show anything either. Like it's all from like the first episode. It doesn't really show much in the way of fantasy stuff.
Well, no, but I think that that does kind of work as sort of an additional bit of recap, at least. For me, what really bothers me about it is just the fact that there's just nothing. It's just a really boring song.
Yeah.
There's no energy to it.
I don't know. I think it's kind of catchy.
I mean, it's not awful, but for a series like this,
but not iconic.
It definitely would have benefited from being much more energetic in the way that the Gurren Lagann opening was.
But by the way, just to kind of go back a very small distance, sorry, I went back and while you were talking, I just kind of flipped open one of the subtitled episodes of the show because I was curious about how well the voices match up.
Yeah.
And as far as their actual voices go, they're fairly close to the English voices as far as their actual voice goes. Now, I've never been great at picking out Japanese accents, so I don't know if the accent is apropos, but as far as the actual tone and inflection of their voice, they're pretty similar, actually. As far as the two main characters go, I didn't listen to anyone else.
That would have probably been a situation where I would have wanted them to take more creative liberty then, because I just could not. I had such a hard time just tolerating their voices and the way they talked.
You better watch what you say, because anime fans will be like, "What is wrong with you?"
No, anime fans will only get angry with him if he says the Japanese voice actors were bad.
Well, that's
so
true.
if anything, Reese, you're in trouble.
What he just said.
I didn't say the Japanese voice actors
Well, you
were
said
bad.
they sounded like
you,
the English people.
Yeah, but I liked the English voice actors.
That's another reason why they'll hate you. They are
the same. I liked them both.
You know.
You can't win.
If the whole
they are
series,
sub people.
if the whole series was the cartoony style, and it didn't really get into the meta plot that was a bit more serious, then I can see those voices fitting fine. But starting from the beginning, when they're in the real world, in the end, whenever things get serious, those voices just feel too. They feel too cartoony. They feel too exaggerated to really feel like they match.
Well, you know, at the end of this whole thing, the reason why I wanted to go with this episode was with this show was because when I first picked it, I didn't know any of you guys had actually seen it before. I thought, okay, we're all going to go into this new series with fresh eyes, and we're just going to see what happens.
I mean, Reef and Saber, they used to be head honchos in an anime convention, so they're pretty on top of things.
I did not know that. I will be more on guard. I'll be more on guard in the future. But for me, we're not always going to like every series that we pick. In fact,
Well, yeah.
I will make sure of that.
yes, we will be going into some series that we may universally revile in the future. In fact, I have a
Xavier,
few
Renegade
ideas.
Angel, anyone?
Yeah.
Pilot Candidate.
I won't torture
Pilot
my
Candidate.
friends with that.
Pilot Candidate was good.
Okay, maybe I'm remembering something else. There was this really awful Adult Swim anime.
Are you thinking of 12-Ounce Mouse?
No, anime.
Oh.
I mean, it could have been Pilot Candidate, but I like giant robots, so.
Okay.
Pilot Candidate.
I don't tend to watch bad shows, so I don't have
And then a
anything to
cat girl
suggest
mechanic.
right now. Anyway, I think we're ready to wrap this up. I don't have anything else on my show notes to talk about. So I figure we'll end this with final plugs, and then the show that we're going into next month.
Okay.
So let's see, plugs. How about we go with you, Saber?
Well, you can check out Culture Love and Chaos on nevershutup.com, and I'm also on the Straw Hat Quarterly as well as the regular Spin Dash.
And Reef?
I'm also on those two, and also the quote site on nevershutup.com, and you can also get the quote book An Honest Portrayal of Useless People on Amazon.
And GX?
I made a Wally.
Yes, you did. And
Rally.
Corey, well, I guess Hawk your DeviantArt or something.
Nah, go to blackcomics.com. I have links to everything.
Oh,
that,
yeah, you do have that now, don't you?
Yes. I got to
All
pay
right.
bill soon.
And next month, November, the leaves have been changing for a while, so I thought we'd go into a fall show, Over the Garden Wall.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to watch that series before we talk about it, I actually didn't do any research to find out where you can see it, but I know you can buy it on Amazon Prime, and I would recommend it because it is a very good series.
I will tell you, a lot of cable providers and satellite providers, if you have some sort of login with them, you can typically stream a ton of Cartoon Network stuff from their website, but you do have to have a login.
And I'm also not entirely sure if they'd have all 10 episodes on there.
I bet they would. I totally bet that sounds like something that they would have.
Anyway, we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Cool.
Adios.
Goodbye.
Hug your giant wooden carved phallus tonight.
No thanks.
And that's a wrap, and my head hurts. Yeah, I was not as ready for this one as I was for the last one. I've been suffering from all sorts of pains all day. I don't know why.
Ugh.
Ugh.
That stinks.
I still got a bit of a cough.
But, show must go on and everything.
Show must go on.
I was feeling fine yesterday.
Mm.
It's probably because I only got 4 hours of sleep. I had to get up really early for the doctor.
Yeah.
Good news is I have a clean bill of health.
Yay.
Yay.
Woot.
As
Let's
opposed
see,
to
10
dirty
episodes,
bill.
that's not too bad.
I was afraid I was going to have something serious, but no, I'm good. I'm a healthy young person. I love being a healthy young person.
So what did you say we were watching again?
Over the Garden Wall, which you don't have to buy anything, Corey, because I have the whole thing on Amazon Prime. And technically,
If it's on Amazon Prime, then I can stream it.
well,
It's
I think you do. I think you have to buy it though, and I'd be willing to let you watch it off of mine.
Let's
So far, no one wants to take me up on that, presumably because they don't like the idea of having access to that.
I just plain old don't like you.
Yeah.
Is this a Western one or a
Western.
Okay.
This is Cartoon Network. This is a miniseries they put out. It kind of has a visual style that looks like Adventure Time mixed with Animal Crossing.
I know we're gonna say it's Western, but based on the staff that worked on a lot of it, I almost want to say it's a very British piece. But
I mean,
British is Western.
I don't know.
yes.
I got an American folktale vibe from it.
I mean, I'm just saying that it's going to probably it appears on first glance to be more British than American.
Oh, that doesn't mean much. Like,
Oh, it does have Elijah Wood. Is he British, or does he just have a British
Yes.
accent more? Okay.
No, he's British.
So
As
yeah,
is
it has some
Christopher
British.
Lee.
well, of course it's British. It's a miniseries, not a TV series.
That's because they know when to shut up.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to log off.
You also have to turn off the live feed.
Yeah, I know. Go